He's not angry. He's just, of course, according to the story, because he falls asleep a lot, so he cut his eyelid to wake him up by himself, and his eyelid again became some kind of teeth. They make up, I think they make up the story too. So in the legend. Okay, so that's his story. Okay, and let's move on. So he started the Zen tradition in China, and we started here. With more is not here. Anyone of you talk about here? No? Okay. Now, before him, in the 2nd and 3rd century, there's some the sutra. The Sutra of Breath Meditation has been translated from Sanskrit into Chinese language, and they start to do meditation. But eventually, many monks from India, from Central Asia, went to China to spread the meditation traditions. But it's not been popular yet until Bodhidharma came. Because he said that my teaching is straightforward, straight to the heart, straight to our mind. My teaching is not based upon the books, but not based upon the scripture. So what's wrong with the scripture? What's wrong with the books? Because people used to attach to the books. They say, oh, this is teaching, but the Bodhidharma is saying, my teaching is quite different. I point the teaching to the mind, not based on the books. But later on, he passed down one of the main Buddha teaching to his disciple. And that is why when you study with Zen tradition, later on, you see Zen tradition is go beyond again the scripture. Because as much as we attach to the scripture, you get nowhere. Like if you are a knowledgeable person, right? If you learn a lot, but you don't practice, it's useless in Buddhist view. Make sense? Like if you learn how to fix car, but you never touch the engine, that's useless. Make sense? So you have to have some kind of experience. So that's why Buddha say that's my teaching. My teaching is to the point, to the mind, to awake people to their pure nature, Buddha nature. And that's why it's become popular. Starting from Bodhidharma from 6th or 5th century. And that's why we have the five houses and so forth. Okay, Christina, what do you have for Huina?
I don't have my paper with me, but I think I remember most of it. He was born to a poor family, and his dad died when he was really young, so he never got to go to school.
Yeah.
So he was illiterate for his entire life, but he did end up, throughout his life, writing the Platform Sutra.
Platform Sutra.
And he was the 6th patriarch, and that's a picture of his mummy. I know that he never decomposed. I think it's still around, isn't it? It's amazing.
Yeah. Without any kind of chemicals and preservation. And if have times, and if I remember, I will show you many. You say not mummy, but the flesh body of them. He's in I think 8th or 9th century, and his body is still there, and still sit up, not lying down. Did I tell you about this in here? Right. How?
That the purity of his mind leads to like purity of the body, and so that's why it doesn't decompose.
Yeah, that's why it doesn't. It is not deposed, right? So this is beyond our thinking, right? So again, anyone of you know about him? No. Okay. So basically, he poor guy, and he went to the forest to pick up the woods, to sell for the people as the sort of heater, like in the winter. Or you guys use wood heater here at home? You use wood heater, or you buy wood to. Okay, at our monastery we have plenty, so we have more than 80 acres plant and wood still there for more than 12 years already. You see that plenty. Anyway, so he's so poor that he went out to chop up wood and sell and sold to the people so that he could subsist his life as well as his mom. So one day, he went to a customer house, and somehow he overheard that his customer designed him diamond sutra, and somehow on the spot he recognized. On the spot he awake. He was awakened, and his customer recognized us and advised a suggestion. Okay, go to see the fifth patriarch. The fifth patriarch. The fifth patriarch of Zen traditions. So he could help you out. He could give you the guidelines. So yes, he let go everything and went to see the fifth patriarchs. And when he went there, so this patriarch said that, well, go to the kitchen and work there. And of course he worked there for several months. And one day the fifth patriarch, and he said that, well, now in the assembly of monks, you guys, every one of you guys, write a verse for me to see. If you write a correct word, I will pass rope and bow as the authorities of being a patriarch to you guys. So in the whole assembly, probably a couple of hundreds of monks. So no one dared to write a verse because there's a leader of monks below him. So everyone thought that that monk, the knowledgeable monk, intelligent monk, the leader of the monks would be the next one. Normally, right? So, but somehow that monk, he's scared too. So at night, he sneaked out, he wrote the verse on the wall. And in the morning, everyone passed by the wall and saw that verse. And of course, they praised whoever wrote that verse, and they know the leader, the monk, the leader wrote that verse. And when the patriarch stepped out, he saw this nonsense. He uses his tissue to erase that verse. And somehow, the next morning, there's another verse on the wall. That's next to the one that was the first one. So everyone praised that one too. This is so wonderful. And so when the master came, he said, it's nonsense too. He erases. But later on at night, he called. Right now, even he is uneducated, he asked an officials at the temple to write up second verse for him. And the patriarch, the master, recognized him. So that's why he called him into the rooms, you can say secretly, to pass the rope and bow to him as a sign of passing the authorities. So, but what happened? The master advised him, don't teach now, go away for 16 years. And after that, you can go out and teach. Yes. So he listened to his master, and he went away, lived among the hunters for 16 years. And there's a short story, short movies that talk about him too. So after that, he went out. So one day, when he decided to go out to teach, he met two monks at the temple. They argued with each other. One monk, he said, you know the flags, the American flags, right? One monk said, oh, the flag is moving. Another monk said, no, the wind is moving. Is that right? Both of them is right. Right? You see, when the wind blows, so the flag is moving. So he stepped up and said, no, not the flag is moving, it's not the wind's moving, your mind is moving. Does that make sense? Why? Why is your mind is moving? Why? Is nonsense or makes sense? What do you think?
It makes sense.
Why? Why does it make sense?
Because your mind is perceiving the information.
Yeah, your mind. See that? Thank you. That's the correct one. Yeah. Right. When that reason why in Buddhism is say when you have calm mind, the world will be peaceful. The world will be calm. If you have turbulent mind, you have violent mind, everything will be violent for you. Make sense? So that's the reason why people recognize him as a spiritual. And from that time on, he he shaved his head and done the rope. For that time, the 16 years period, he was lay person. Okay, so after that, he spoke the Dharma in the Platform Sutra. It's still hard if you don't understand the meaning of Zen. Have you tried to read that sutra, Platform Sutra?
Not really.
It's not easy.
It's difficult.
Unless you know the meanings of emptiness, unless you know that you're not supposed to read in the common way, in the judgmental way, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's just talk to the points, talk to the mind, straight to the mind, right? So that's the reason why he became a Siddha Paja for many years. There's a lot of legend involved with him again too. So, but after he passed away, one important legend, I want to say that before he passed away, he said that, "Watch out for my head after I die. When someone will try to take my head away from my body." And yes, a couple of years after he passed away, is one Korean monks. He sneaked in his temple and tried to chop off his head so that he could bring back to Korea, but he failed. Yeah, so his body is still here, and many monks in all traditions actually. In Thailand, I have seen. In Thailand, in Vietnam, China, so I have seen the real body that they left even after they passed away for 1,000 years, especially for hundred years, because of that type of purity in their mind is affected your body too. Okay, right. So a lot of legend we've gotten about him. And if you study Zen without studying that book, that sutra, you miss the point. Platform Sutra is still important in Zen tradition. Okay, the 5 houses. What do you have, Nick?
The 5 houses of the Zen Buddhism, what I found, which granted was not a lot.
Which are they?
Well, the 5 houses of Zen Buddhism refer to Chan Buddhism in China. It was started during the Tang Dynasty. The 5 schools were Guiyang.
Yeah, it's a whole chart here.
Guiyang,
What else?
Linji,
Yeah.
Fayan, Kaodong, and Yunman.
Yeah, you wow, you remember.
Oh,
That's
wow.
Okay.
But the most I could find was that they all kind of had their own way of teaching Zen Buddhism, and the 5 houses refers to 5 different schools of Zen Buddhism. And then at some point, most of them were incorporated into the Linji. That's about all.
Okay, so this Wednesday we talk more about especially Linji and Kaodong. Okay, here, look at here. Bodhidharma, here, see that? The church here, Bodhidharma, the 28. And Tuikot, the one who cut his hand to seek Bodhidharma and passed down to, this is the 5th Paja, Hongren, that I told you, the one who passed the rope and bow to Huinang here. And beside him, this Sengshu, that's the member I told you, the leader of the monks. Everyone expect him to be the next one, but that's not the case. And after him, after him, there's many of his disciples, and this famous, during the time of Nasui, they read the Gui Shang. Okay, let me put this way here so you don't see. Here, Gui Shang school, Linji school, Kaodong school, Fire school, and Denmark school. That's the 5 school. And now these 2 schools still survive. The other school merged with these 2 schools. And you know why in the next class on Wednesday. Okay, so that's the five houses of Zen tradition. And especially him, on Wednesday we talk more. He used the method, remember I told you? The method of what? Yelling
Yeah.
and beating. Not because anger, but because he want to wake his student up, especially when they fall asleep in meditation. Oh, is that the way? Not because anger, remember. The master, they use all means to awake the student. Okay? So that's the high school Zen. Oh, I told you.
I don't have anything to add. You guys already said.
Oh, really? I have to
Yeah.
wait for you. What else? You don't even.
No, just that Linji is the most predominant one, and Kagong is the second most dominant with the amount of monks and temples.
Okay.
That's really it. You guys already said everything.
But probably Wednesday, right? You need to do more research about Linji, right? Okay. How he taught to his students to do meditation. Okay. And his background too. Okay. So the next one.
Basically, Zen meditation and their approaches are very similar to the other schools of Mahaya Buddhism and also Theravada Buddhism. The main difference that I saw between the two was that they tend to take more of a more kind of like their main approach is towards meditation instead of like the sutras and like the cultural doctrines and things like that. So they primarily focus on meditation compared to the other groups who do focus on it, but they also take into account like the sutras and things like that as well. That's basically what I found.
So that's the main difference.
That's what I found.
Okay.
Yes.
Actually, she's not here. Okay. Now let me tell you a story. There's a monk. In winter, he went around country somehow too cold. So he stopped by a temple at night, and he went to the Buddha hall, that's mean the prayer hall. So he saw the wooden Buddha statue. So he brought one of them down and brought it. And the abbot or the head monk at the temple came out and said, "How could you burn my Buddha statue?" And he said that he turned around. He said to that monk, "I burned it because I'm looking for Buddha relics." Remember we talked about relics? And so this monk, he said, "How could you find the Buddha relic in that wooden statue?" So the monk who burned that statue, he said, "Well, if that's the case, I will bring more to burn." It makes sense? Meditation, especially Zen tradition, it helps the student to be awakened to the Buddha stage, to the Buddha nature directly. Instead of doing like breath meditation, instead of doing visualization, that is just the means to be alert, to be aware of things. But the point in Zen tradition is to point out to the goal here, awaken people in the Buddha nature. And the monk, the head monk, because he attached to that Buddha statue, right? And so he say, he complains, "How could you burn my statue, my Buddha statue?" They say, "Well, if you're attached to Buddha statue, since there's no relic in the wooden one, I will more. Because it's just a piece of wood. Let's go beyond the wood, go beyond the form." Make sense now? Go beyond the attachment. The master always help the student to overcome that kind of attachment. Make sense now? Right? And that's why, especially in this pine house, later on they use Kongan. You guys know about this before the class? What's up?
They're like Japanese parables almost.
Can you give one example?
No.
Any one of you? Kevin, you know anything? No? I think I told you guys before too. This all kind of Kongan. The Kong-Ed is some question that you cannot think. The more you think, the more you get stuck. Because if you think, you fall in the trap of duality. Is that right? Right? Good and bad and so forth. That is not the goal, to recognize Buddha in nature. Let me tell you a short comment. What was your face before you were born? I told you guys, right? No? That's one of the comments. Can you recognize your face before you were born? Can you?
No.
No. So that is one of the comments. What's mean? Who knows what's mean? What was your face before you was born? Anyone of you? It's hard, right? Remember, it is not physical face. Remember that. That is your Buddha nature. Make sense now? It's not the physical face, but your nature, pure nature before you was born. Make sense now?
That's what I was thinking, like, and everybody's will be different and feel different and seem different because of who we are.
Yeah, but everyone has in Buddhist view. That's Buddha nature here. That's what we were when we were born. And even in, remember I told you in Buddhism, even an ant, even an insect, they still have Buddha nature too. That's why we respect them. We don't kill them. Because of karma, they would be out there. But if they have the chance, if they have the merit, they would be as us. And they may evolve in different form of life too. We don't know. So that's why we respect life. Right? So again, this is not the physical face, but the nature that we in ourselves before we were born. Make sense now? So that story relates to, let me tell you a short story too. Relate to this monk. He studied Dharma Sutra. He wrote commentary and so forth. When he went to that master asked him that question. He got stuck. He went back. He burned every commentary that he have ever written. So like one day when he walked out of the field, people in the past they did the farming, right? So somehow he used what we call the hole, right? Somehow he hit the rock. At that instant, he recognized his real face before he was born. That's in Buddha nature. Yeah. Make sense now? Right. Anyway, so that's the story. A lot of story. Next week, on Wednesday, if you can, please type on Google search Zen story to tell your neighbors, and pick up any story. Tell me the meaning. If you don't understand the way how the Zen master approach or teach the student to awaken of their Buddha nature, most of the stories you can say are nonsense for the common people. If they don't have any knowledge about Buddhism, if they don't have any knowledge about Zen, most of the story will be nonsense. But if you understand, it's still meaningful. Okay, Zen story to tell your neighbors. Okay, the next one, Taylor. What do you have here?
I have that, I believe it's Thien is the school of Zen Buddhism in Vietnam.
Yes.
In 580 Common Era, Vinny Taruchi, an Indian monk, came to Vietnam after completing his studies under Gyaltse Singchan, the third patriarch of Chinese Buddhism. Zen. The sect that Vinny Taruchi and his lone Vietnamese disciple founded would be the oldest branch of Thien. This school became the most influential group in Vietnam under Van Han in the 10th century. Other schools include Von Nogin Thong, founded by Ma Zu, and Theo Duong, which incorporates the Nan Pho chanting. And then the Bamboo Grove School, which has influences from Confucian and Taoist philosophies. And then later on, Nugien Theo introduced the Ling School in about 1300, which would later become the predominant branch of Buddhism in China. in Vietnam?
Yeah, like I think we studied briefly about history of Buddhism in Vietnam, right? So Buddhism spread to Vietnam by sea road, maritime road, and it got to Vietnam in the first and second century. And at first, many monks they practiced meditation too. And then later on, when Buddhism died out in India, so we got influence from the Chinese Zen tradition. And many, especially up to now, the Linh Chi and Cao Dong, they still survive in Vietnam too. Linh Chi and Cao Dong. And but this one is so quite different. The Trúc Lâm set, Trúc Lâm just means the forest, bamboo forest set. He is a Vietnamese king who led Vietnamese people to protect the country 3 times from the Mongolian invasion. During the I think 11th and 12th century, some part of Europe was controlled, right? Was invaded by the Mongolian army, right? You know that history. So after they occupied the whole China, so they tried to occupy Vietnam, but somehow this king he led Vietnamese people to defeat the Mongolian army 3 times. And after that, he put down the secular life to become a monk. And he was the founder of this bamboo forest set. And of course, like Tyler, you mentioned, he combined Taoist practice, Confucius practice, but mainly is the Zen traditions. And his lineage lasted only a couple hundred years, but later on was one Vietnamese Zen master. He devised his teaching again, and now it's become one of the most popular traditions in Vietnam. If you visit Vietnam and if you seek for meditation, you may go to one of his centers to do meditation. Anyway, so that's a short history. But basically, at the beginning, people like to do meditation, but nowadays, especially in China and even Vietnam or Japan, Korea too, they make a combination. Or most of the time, they do the Pure Land too. They don't pay much attention about meditation nowadays because of the faith. And plus, somehow it's just convenience, right? It is easy. They prefer to be safe than to do their own practice. So that's a short introduction about Zen tradition in Vietnam. Okay, so next one. I share what you have.
Is the Korean variant of Ching's meditation, and the West more commonly known as Japanese variant Zen. Seong was transmitted into Korea around 632 by Phil Minning, who studied with the 4th Japanese patriarch, Dai Dioxin, and he was the first to bring Seong to Korea. Oh, then transmitted his teachings into Sin Heng, who also traveled to China. And Sin Heng studied with Fuji, who is a successor of Shi Mixu, who is the head of the Northern School of Chinese Chan. And Seong was further popularized by Doi at the beginning of the 9th century. Seong was slowly further transmitted into Korea as Korean monks that were mainly Hwayong began to travel to China and study the Chan of Hongzu's school of Mazu Daiobi.
Okay, so what do you find about this tradition in Korea? What's the unique points?
I mainly just looked up like the founders and stuff. I don't really look up many traditions.
Yeah. Basically, yeah, because especially Korea and Japan, and let us finish this one too, and we'll come back. So again, many monks from Korea, starting from I think from 7th century, they went to China to study Zen tradition. not according to history. During those times, it's still hard for them to travel to India. It's still far, right? So most time it's convenient for them to go to China to study. And many Korean monks who study under the Chinese master and became enlightened one too. Okay, let's us move to the next one. Zen in Japan. Adam? Oh yeah, what do you have?
I actually studied a lot about Japan, and one
Oh
of the
yeah. That's right.
Zen Buddhism is actually still huge in Japan.
Mhm.
It might not be just as much as whenever it first came, but Buddhism was actually introduced to Japan by Korea in the 6th century, and then later on it was brought in by religion-led government by Prince Shotoku in